Good morning and welcome to Live at the Waterhole. My name is James Hendry, and for the first hour of today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. Kevin Peterson, MBE no less, is a former England cricket player, a highly sought after pundit and commentator, and most importantly, for the purposes of today's show, Kevin grew up in South Africa and is an avid conservationist with a particular interest in rhinos. In 2018, he founded Sarai, an acronym for Save Our Rhino, Africa and India. Over the course of the next hour, we'll chat about the animals we are seeing at the waterholes, and we'll delve into Sarai, its mission, conservation in general, and anything else that might pop up. Now, please remember this is live and interactive, and you can send us any questions that you'd like to, or any comments to #WildEarth on Twitter, or X, I'm not sure what it's called anymore, or if you're watching on our app, you can send through questions there. Good morning, Kevin, and thanks so much for being here with us. It's a real privilege to have you here on Live at the Waterhole.
Morning, James. Yeah, I can never get my head around this X and Twitter. I'm not sure it'll ever become X in my head. So it's a mistake I always make too.
Yes, and I also don't know whether one X's or one tweets anymore. It's very difficult to say.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's get into some chat. We're sitting here at Oldonyo Lodge in Kenya. I'm not sure if you've ever been. Have you been up to Kenya?
I've done the Masai Mara, yes. So I did a couple of the camps there, and on different occasions we try to catch the migration. We went to Kenya the one year, and the animals were in Tanzania. So we said, right, this time next year we're going to go and try on the Serengeti side. When we were that side, the animals were the other side. So we've missed the migration, unfortunately.
Bad luck, yes. The timing is quite tricky with those things.
Yeah.
All right. Where do you find yourself today? You're not in Africa currently.
No, I was there for a couple of days earlier this week, and I'm now back in the UK. So I'm sitting, watching the scene, just like you are. So back home, and just crazy busy with loads of different things. But had a very, very cool week a couple of days in South Africa. I was in the Kruger. We were dehorning rhino. We were hosting clients, for hosting huge journalists, just talking about what's happening to the rhino population in the Kruger National Park, and trying to gain more traction, more eyeballs, raise more awareness, and help people that it's of situations, as we all know.
All right, let's perhaps, for those of people who don't know you very well, there are a number of people watching from across the pond who have probably heard of cricket but are completely baffled by it. For those of you who don't know, Kevin was an exceptional right-handed batsman and certainly one of the more colourful characters of England cricket over the last 2 decades or so. But you're not from England, Kevin. You're from the KZN Midlands originally, not too far from where the rhino was saved from extinction. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your formative years and your early travels to the bush and what inspired this love in you.
Yeah, so being South African, it was 20 years I lived there, and then I made my trip across what became greener pastures for me. I've been here now for 23 years. So it was a sports decision. It was a business decision, and an opportunity that existed in England that I wanted to pursue. KZN all my formative years. We used to family holiday up to the Kruger, like a lot of families do. Spend time in the bush. I think when you're born in Africa, you're not born in Africa. What they say, you're not born because born in you, and you certainly feel that way when you're growing up. Very outdoor lifestyle in South Africa, and it's got great heritage. So I mean, there's many in the African population on the continent who don't have something for wildlife, just because of the nature of how Africa exists. So that image or that video that we're watching there now, I mean, pop that on a screen, just Africa. And so it holds a spin in my heart, as it did in my family's. But then I shifted in 2000 across north, ended up in the UK, had a pretty cool career, and your sports career, and you're still at a youngish age. I was lucky enough to be taken on an experience in South Africa, and found and have found some purpose in trying to use my profile for good and try and help protect, save, and look after one of Africa's most iconic species, which is the rhino. Because when I found out in 2013 on that trip what was happening to the rhino at that stage, and knowing that we've lost around 90% of the population of rhino in that South Africa region in the last 10 years, we have collectively, with loads of amazing people, tried to see if we can make a difference. So that's in effect the circle that I've journeyed along, and today I sit in the UK, and I want my children's children to be able to see what we can now. Although we've just been 3 weeks out at our lodge in the South Africa, and we saw 2 rhino. I mean, on one day we saw 7 different leopard, and in the 3 weeks we were there, we saw 2 rhino.
Yeah.
So the balance of what one should see more of is not very balanced.
Yeah.
There's an unequal balance there for us, and so it just gives me that drive to do more, and that's why we were there out for another couple of days this week.
Yeah.
And we got to make sure we don't lose the species.
I remember working at Londolozi and in the early 2000s, and the rhino were like cattle there. We didn't call them in on the radio because it was just unnecessary. You knew you'd bump and you'd see them, and the last time I was there, same thing. Sabi Sands, we saw 9 leopards in 3 days, and we saw one crash of 3 rhino. And as you say, you can really feel the difference. We've been going to these places for a long time.
It is an issue. Sabi Sands is well protected. I mean, if you talk geography, anyone living in the UK, the Sabi Sands is like Mayfair. It's like the place. It's where all the big players are. It's where all the big tourists populate. It's where you go, and it's it's an issue when you see rhino in 3 weeks. I mean, it's far from ideal.
Yeah, no, I mean it's. I suppose the Sabi Sands is interesting because it's a sink. Animals will go there, and if that's what it's like there, one hates to think what it must be like elsewhere. And in the Kruger, I mean, they've lost 70% of the herd since 2012. But interestingly, I read the other day that the United Nations working group on this has found that for the first time since 2012, we actually have a slight increase in rhino numbers in Africa, which is fantastic. And they're now
I heard firsthand on Tuesday that the black rhino population is increasing, but the white rhino population isn't.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm always struck by these numbers. We probably have roughly 23,000 black and white rhino in total, and I think to the uninitiated, 23,000 sounds like a lot. But I always take it back to going to watch a sports game. If you go to any, if you go, let's go to your history. If you go to the MCG, that
Mm.
23,000 Rhino wouldn't fill a quarter of the stadium, right?
No.
Which is it always just shocks me that we think of 23,000 as a big number, and yet you couldn't fill a decent sized stadium with that number of people. So I think that puts it in quite nicely in perspective.
Yeah, it does. And you think about how big the continent is and how big these parks are. I mean, what's the Kruger's 2 million hectares, isn't it? I mean, you travel
Yeah,
north of Skukuza, you probably count on one hand how many rhino you're going to find all the way up there.
yeah,
South of Skukuza is where the most densely populated for the animal exists, but
yeah,
it's just sad that you just do not see that animal.
yeah. We're going to go to a short break for some of our platforms. We'll carry on chatting. Um,
Do you want to know what the WildEarth team has been busy with lately? Join us on September 24th for a company update town hall. We will update our explorers on the growth and change that we have been experiencing and what more is to come. Watch it live on your nearest device. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Understand what issues exist. And like I said to the clients and guests and friends that we had in South Africa this week, to people, go and see for yourself what is safari. Go and see a sunrise. Go and see a sunset. Go and watch an elephant drinking at a waterhole. Go and listen to the hyenas when they start carrying on at nighttime. Go and listen to a lion roaring. Go and sit with impala for half an hour. Just go and drive the roads and look at the vegetation. You won't hear an alarm. You won't see another car. You won't see a high-rise building. You'll see clean skies, clear skies, stars at night. And that's, in essence, life in its purest form. And once you've done that, those smells, those sights, those sounds won't leave you. and then we can have a discussion about how you can be a part of something which is greater than us. So that's in essence what I've been doing 10 years. I've been taking people out to Africa and helping them experience that emotional attachment that you get once you've been there. So it's to want to help, and more so, not just the animals that we see on screen there, but the friendships that I've created in South Africa with rangers, with people and protect these animals day and night, with these rangers that go out. And so it's more than just the animals. There's a huge ecosystem that surrounds the protection of these animals that I also need to be supported. So that's my profile, and that's how I will continue to use my profile. And I think that in terms of awareness, there is a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 10 years that we've been able to do that has banged a global drum on making sure people understand the issue. And I think we've helped in our small way to stop the decline of the animal, and
for sure.
With us banging the drum and financially supporting technology and the animals, we've in a way helped.
Yeah. You touched on something that's obviously very important to us as WildEarth, and that is connecting people to nature. You're taking people into the bush. We're doing it more virtually. And I mean, just look at this magnificent elephant standing here in Kenya. And I mean, to imagine sitting where this camera is, listening to the birds, smelling the dust, smelling his dung actually, and in fact that sweet kind of honeyed leather smell that an elephant gives off. I mean, it's once you've experienced it, it's very difficult to forget it.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. It really is something truly unique, and one that people have to experience. At some stage, you've just got to try and experience. But I also understand that a lot of people can't experience it because travel is incredibly expensive. Going out into these places will be very expensive. So there's only a small percentage of the population that can afford to travel to Africa. So platforms like this, opportunities for people to see and hear like this and sounds like this is really important, because it's about education. And if you can't get there, this is as good as it gets, because you're closer than where you can get to most elephants.
Yes.
So it's truly unique, and it's a wonderful experience. I mean, even me sitting here, we do some fun stuff out there, as you do, James, as well.
Yeah.
And we see some cool stuff. I mean, you can just watch this elephant for hours.
Yeah, you really could. Let's get on to Sarai. Tell us a bit about what it is, what it does. It's not a charity, but I think to many people that would require a bit of explanation. So tell us a bit about Sarai and the dream behind it and what its future holds.
Yeah, so when I was finishing off my career, my little man drew our logo while we were out in Africa, and I decided to put that sticker on my cricket bat while I was playing, and I then relinquished a endorsement deal and put rhino stickers all over my bat and sort of batted for rhinos while I was finishing off my career. And a lot of people asked about the stickers and said, how do we get these stickers? We love the stickers. So we made a few and got rid of them, sold them. And we then did some caps and some T-shirts, and everything started to go quite nicely. And I started to hold events in South Africa and did loads of, gave off loads of experiences. And then we, from those proceeds, donated and gave everything to conservation. And then I decided, well, maybe we should do this a little bit. Maybe we should set up a social enterprise that is a little bit more structured. So we did that in 2018. I think you just said 2018, and we had a good run for a while till COVID hit. But we were able to still host experiences. We were still able to get people to support. But when COVID was about treading water and we survived, because it would have been easy to have just thrown in the towel and said, I can't do anything now, done and dusted. But actually, I decided I wanted to get investors to come and join a brand. And I got invested during COVID. And we then decided we wanted to properly restructure how we were doing our business. So that took about 12 months of restructuring. Relaunch a few months ago after quite a bit of water. And we donate a good percentage of our profits directly to conservation. And it's a big drive for us to do as well as we can, so that donate as much as we can. So it's a very simple business model, and it's a business model that we really enjoy. So we spend money to make money to be able to donate as much as we can. And when you see how many brands there are out there, I mean, we've just launched a cap yesterday. We did 2023 black caps and white caps, signify the black and white rhino. 2023 for obvious reasons, and there'll be that'll go to conservation and straight down the animal into the people that support these animals from that limited run of caps. So it's a team that I've assembled that are also very dedicated to helping the species, and more importantly, when I got them involved, they've now been over to Africa, and they've seen, they've heard, they've touched, they've felt, and they've got that emotional attachment. So it's not just running a 9 to 5. It's okay, right? We need to do this. We need to do this properly. How do we do this? Yeah. It's just something that I feel incredibly proud about being able to have. And also very proud of the people that assist us, and incredibly proud of what we've been able to do for conservation over the last however many.
What are some of the focal points for the conservation activities? What sort of endeavours are you helping with Sarai?
Yeah, so Care for Wild in South Africa, we've done a lot of work for Care for Wild. We helped them a heck of a lot actually through COVID. We made some fairly substantial donations towards Petronelle and her team, and we have the most fabulous partnership with Hublot, which is one of LVMH's luxury watch brands, and in that we were able to, through COVID, donate a heck of a lot of money and a lot of rands to Care for Wild.
Attention all WildEarth fans. World Rhino Day and the Cricket World Cup are right around the corner, and we have a surprise for you.
From the sublime to the ridiculous, everybody.
James Henry will be joined on Live at the Waterhole by former England cricket captain and Sorai founder Kevin Peterson. Learn more about the work Sorai is doing to help Africa's unicorn thrive in the wild. Come along for the fun. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Because of how well they were living in harmony with the community and how well they were protected, and seeing the numbers that were growing, our focus immediately needed to be on South Africa.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where our focus is, because the rhino population isn't growing as well as it's growing in India. And so it would be foolish for us to go and spend half our time in India and half our time in South Africa when the immediate focus is on South Africa. And that's not to cut India off at all, but by no means is it about cutting India off, but it's just about that immediate right now on isn't that beautiful? The immediate focus right now on seeing if we can be a part of a bigger picture to solving this crisis that exists in South Africa. The Indian rhino isn't involved in a crisis. They are just such wonderful conservationists, and the work that the Indian community do up in Guwahati and around the Kaziranga National Park is inspiring for many to watch and see. And so we'll leave them to do that whilst we try and actually sort out what's a bit in South Africa.
It's a serious indictment, I guess, that India, with its even larger population, has managed to arrest the decline, I suppose. And it's an indictment on us that we haven't managed to do that, although I think we're getting closer. For those of you wondering, we're now at Nkoro Pan, which is in the Sabi Sands that we were talking about earlier, and not too far from where Kevin likes to holiday periodically. And obviously it is the middle of the dry season, and the real business end of the dry season now, and so you're going to get wonderful scenes like this until the rains begin, probably in about a month and a half's time. Have you travelled to any other wildlife areas in Africa? And I mean, you must have. You've been to you said you went to the Mara and the Serengeti. Do you have any other particular focus in Africa other than South Africa for rhino?
With the largest wild herd of black and white rhino that exists there in the Kruger, our focus for Sarai and all my conservation work is there, and supporting Petronelle and her team. I've holidayed, yes, and visited Botswana, Zimbabwe,
Mm-hmm.
Tanzania, Kenya, Namibia. So we've done a fair share of all of that. But no, I've not got any ties in terms of conservation efforts towards anywhere else. I just feel that being South Africa demands all the attention and all the focus at the moment to try and get to a situation where we see more than 2 rhino in 3 weeks in the
Yeah,
Sabi Sands, and actually see a rhino, apart from the rhino in the couple of days that I was there on Monday and Tuesday.
yeah. And Kevin, if people wanted to get involved with Sarai, we've got a question here from, I think it is somebody actually called Kevin. No, it's not. It's from Melanie. Melanie is not called Kevin, and she's from Tasmania in Australia, and she wants to know, how can everyone at home help spread the message? Can they help Sarai? How can let's split this question into two. How can they get involved with Sarai? And if that's not something that works for them, how do you think the average Joe can? What's the best thing that they can do for conservation right now?
Yeah, you see, this is something all the time, and it's the start of the question is the best thing about it, because it's how can we help, and I understand that finances are stretched. I'm not stupid enough to not understand that most people in the world are going through a tough time out of the pandemic, and with interest rates and inflation and everything where it's at. Different people live by different means, and it's it's difficult to give a specific way in which one can help, seeing and supporting the animals that we can see on screen now, because without understanding somebody's financial position, it's hard to answer, because immediately my first response, and I mean, I had some very affluent people with me on Monday and Tuesday, and they were there because they're significantly affluent. And I said, you guys are doing the right thing. I want you guys to come out and see what we see now. I want you to sit and look at what, and I want you to smell it, because what TV doesn't do is give you the smell. And when you smell it, and you just smell that grass, and you smell the rains that fall, and you smell that waterhole, sometimes the smell's on as good as I'm trying to express. However, that's the ecosystem that you're sitting in and you're watching. So it's hard without understanding somebody's exact financial situation. I would say, first of all, if you can, visit these wonderful places. If you can't, share on Facebooks and Instagrams and Twitters, all the stories, and just be a part of ensure that people understand that there's an issue. The more people that know about it, the more unpopular it becomes to brutally destroy a species. And I mean, I find it very difficult on occasions, trying to throw a tin of Coke away or a bottle of water, and sometimes in the kitchen you chuck it in the wrong bin, and I've got a 7-year-old that says, Dad, that's recycling.
Yeah.
So when you've got a generation that are so in tune with what we've been doing to the globe for such a long time, that element of awareness and that education around what's happening is all I can probably say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to say, visit, book your trip now. Without anybody's position, it's very difficult. But what I can say is that you have the ability to save up, and whether it takes you 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, just save up, put a little bit of cash away, and there are different ways in which you can see what we see now. You don't have to go to the most expensive place. There are very, very, very generous offerings, and if you have a foreign currency, your foreign money goes a long way in South Africa. So you can go and experience this, and actually experience it. James, as you know, experiencing it in the most purest form by walking is
sure.
something, you're an outer body experience.
Yeah. I think you made a really interesting point there about how, I mean, certainly younger generations are a lot more aware and connected to our effects on the planet, but also just, I mean, you travel to the bush, you go out on foot, you connect with nature, you have an experience with an elephant on foot or something like that, and suddenly that water bottle that you're throwing away actually means something. And
Yes.
It's astounding that those two things are so connected, and how the one experience will make you so conscious of the other.
And that's why you have to go out and experience it if you can, or at some stage.
Yeah. Let's get on to a little bit of the nitty-gritty around rhino conservation. I want to talk a bit about dehorning. We've got a question here from Catherine, who says, what's the average cost of dehorning a rhino? I'm not sure if you are aware of exactly what the cost is.
Yeah, I do know. know. It depends on how long the helicopter has to fly for, and it can range from about 25,000 to 50,000 rand. So it can range from about just over per rhino, about £1,000, 1,000 to 2,000 pounds, so 1,500 to 3,000 US dollars. It just depends on how long the helicopter has to fly because of fuel.
Yeah, no, it is. That's a hell of a cost. And when you think of how many rhino have been dehorned in South Africa, I mean, that's quite phenomenal. All of the rhino around where you have your home and Buffelshoek are dehorned, almost 90% of them. What do you think about that? What does it make you feel when you see a dehorned rhino? Do you think it's an effective conservation strategy? Tell us your thoughts.
I think it is effective because we're starting to see not as many animals being hit. We've taken away. I'd rather see an alive animal with no horn than just see a population decimated. So it's bittersweet, actually, doing the dehornings and seeing that animal the way I saw it on Tuesday morning, darted and having to experience what it was experiencing. But I've also seen animals that are just being killed and without a horn, then dead without a horn. So that's how I feel about it. But until we get that collective message of the illegal trade of rhino horn and stop every single permit to shoot a rhino and take away every single way in which it can be traded in any specific form, we're going to have to keep doing what we do.
And so, I mean, I'm hearing from you that you are very much on the anti-trade side of that debate.
Yes. Yes, I'm on the anti-trade side of it because we don't have the capacity to flood the market with the amount of rhinos that we have left.
Yeah.
When you go and do the arithmetic around how much is consumed, absolutely nowhere near the numbers to be able to flood the market. And all the pro traders are saying, hey, just cut off all the horn and flood the market. Well, the market requires around 70 tons. We could probably get to 5 tons if we put it in.
Yeah.
And so they tried it with ivory. They tried it with the elephants in the 80s. think, 80s, when you legalize the trade, who's to say that a legal horn is not an illegal horn, and an illegal horn is a legal horn? So people will jump fences very, very quick, and you legalize a horn now, those animals are gone. They are completely gone, done and dusted. We'll kill off the species. There's not enough of them around.
I'm just astounded that, with all of our experience, we still think that trade would work, given that we know it hasn't worked with elephants. It definitely didn't work with ivory. I mean, like you said, the arithmetic is there, and yet there is still a very strong lobby for trade that really doesn't seem to make any logical sense to me.
No.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no mathematical calculation that can back the pro-trade lobbyists. So if you start to speak to the pro-traders and you start to explain to them and help them understand that it didn't work with ivory, I think it was the late 70s until 1990 when they legalized the trade of ivory. 600,000 or 60,000 elephants were poached per year in the 10 years. The global demand for ivory was 600 tons per year. So when President Kenya decided, hold on, I'm going to go and do that fire that burns ivory, we then started to see a positive growth in elephants, because the message was loud and clear. It is not going to happen on my clock. We are not going to allow any more trade of ivory. And the Chinese population and the Vietnamese are consumers. And when you consume what you consume, it's when you take away the trade and everything, then people start to notice. So that's why I'm a firm believer in making sure that we ban any sort of form of trade, and any language around that is certainly halted as quick as we.
Yeah.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
less than 5 minutes. What do you? How do we best stop poaching? What in broad strokes do you think the methods are?
I think that with John Hume selling all of these now, because CITES was never, ever, ever going to legally allow a trade of rhino horn, we have the most wonderful opportunity right now to stop all the conversations about pro-trade.
Yeah,
And with African parks taking the 2000 and people rewild these 2000 rhino, we have such an opportunity to make a stand against the pro-traders and
yeah,
say, under absolutely no way, shape, or form will there ever be a trade of rhino horn ever again. It will be illegal. We also need to get Cyril Ramaphosa, President G, to burn off all the rhino horn that are in every
yeah,
single lock, in every single vault in South Africa. And there needs to be a global message that goes out. Because global message goes out like it did in Kenya all those years ago, the poaching stops. And
yeah,
you will get mortalities because that's just what happens in life. And I'm sure you'll get some naughty guys that'll poach. But we don't have enough rhino horn to flood the market. Like I say, we've only got about 5 tons worth, and the
yeah,
global demand is 70 tons. And we've seen that from statistics. And I've got statistics to prove
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So I think we need to now, the time is now to start pushing and banging that drum around cancelling, stopping, and finishing off any pro of rhino horn.
yeah,
And I think there needs to be a huge global marketing campaign push that. And if we can get President Xi and Ramaphosa in Skakusa one day and burn off every single rhino horn that's in a vault and put out a message around it, it'll be great for brand South Africa. It'll be great for brand as well.
I would agree with you. And I mean, I've often thought to myself how wonderful and what an advertisement for South Africa it would be if we did take a proper stand like that,
Yes,
instead of being a little mealy mouthed about where we stand on these issues. And like you
yes.
say, if we could get President G and Cyril Ramaphosa at Skakusa burning the stockpile, I mean, wow, that would send a serious message out to the world.
Oh, it would be a monster,
Yeah,
absolute monster.
yeah. Got a question here from Chetan Bana from Johannesburg, and he's asking
Yes,
about Sarai and your vision for the next 5 years.
yes. The vision is to continue giving people the opportunity to support us in a way in which you can certainly purchase with a purpose. We released those caps yesterday, and become an ambassador of the bush. So we'll keep giving people the opportunity to be that ambassador. Choose our merchandise, because that percentages of it go to the animal and protecting what you see on camera there right now, and supporting the causes that we support, because we have to keep doing what we do. And it's an easy vehicle to be able to market. It's an easy vehicle to be able to collaborate with huge global brands like we have with Hublot, and drive that message that it's not right what's happening. And there's lots of conversations that are happening in the background about really populating a global message on this anti-pro trade.
Yeah,
Or sorry, anti-trade.
yeah. Anti-trade, yes, not anti. Yeah, anti-trade. Um, we've had some pretty heavy conversation here because it's a very heavy topic. Maybe a couple of lighter things. I've seen a bit on your social media. You having a game or mid morning. What will we call it? It's not really a snack at your coffee stop. Tell us about your pre-game drive routine, especially with particular reference as a sort of South African who's gone to England, with particular reference to the rusk that South African anomaly that no one else understands.
Well, coffee and rusks in the morning are a vital part of waking oneself up. So they're generally very early mornings. And when you have those early mornings, you need that substance to carry you through. So it's, I suppose, not just me that does it. There are a collective of the community that get up, and the Omar Rusk is one of South Africa's traditions. I suppose it's not just in the bush, but anywhere. I have the UK because I love them so much. So we have fun out there, and as horrific as the story is around the rhino, it is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and you can get up to so much fun, and you can enjoy the environment. So you can see so much, and every single day is different. Every morning is different. As boring as it can be, you can be bummed around, and I've had it for ages when my daughter's sitting in the tracking seat next to me and she's like, "Dad, I'm so bored. And can we go home now?" And I'm like, "No, let's." And the next moment you drive around the corner and there's a pride of lion lying in the road. So things just change every single day, which makes it the most fun holiday. And we love it. We don't get out there as much as we want to as a family because of where we live, and also days and times of the year and all sorts. But we spend a lot of time, or as much time as we can when we do.
Yeah. And your kids love it, obviously, or you say your daughter gets a bit bored, but all kids do. I mean, do you think that they have I mean, they were born in England, I'm assuming.
Yeah, British kids born in London, but are obsessed by South Africa, obsessed by the wildlife. My son wants to be a game ranger. He takes some incredibly cool photos. So all my photos that I posted on Instagram from our recent Trillins photos. So he just sits there with his big lens and back to the lodge, and he starts to pick out all of the pictures that he likes, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. He's
beautiful.
obsessed with the wild, and all he wants to do is become a ranger.
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
private. We run our own time, and it's our clock that ticks. Nobody else's clock.
Yeah. Yeah, that would certainly
It'd
be
be a
a
horrible
good place
clock,
to
that one, 5 days.
Yes, I know. But it would be a good 5 days.
Very thirsty.
You very yes, quite. There goes our elephant now at Naledi Dam. We had some, just for those of you who are watching the cameras and with us waffling in the background, we did have some giraffes at Oldonyo in Kenya, and this is in Olifants North, again in the Greater Kruger area. And it looks like a big chestnut tree on the top of that koppie. All right, we're going to wrap things up now with Kevin. Kevin, we're going to ask something of you now, and that is that we'd like this kind of coffee at the Waterhole thing to become a bit of a tradition. We'd love to have you on as often as you'd like to be here, obviously, but
Mm.
we'd like you to nominate somebody at some stage. I'm not going to ask you to put someone on the spot right now, but if you could nominate somebody else influential with an interest in conservation at some stage, it'd be wonderful to have to create a bit of a sort of once a month tradition with something like this, because I think it really is, it's obviously going to draw people in to watch the shows and come to love nature and experience nature, and hopefully it'll inspire people to travel out here and make their own contribution. So I'm just going to leave that with you as a plant a
Okay.
seed in your mind. And then just to say to everybody, we are extremely excited at WildEarth to be partnering with Sarai and with Kevin, and he does some amazing work, and it's so encouraging and heartening to see somebody who's developed a massive profile, global profile, using it for something that is so amazingly dear to my heart and all of our hearts here at WildEarth. And we drive around Juma, and it's quite it's it's kind of almost surreal to think that just up the road, Kevin's driving around on his own game drive.
Yeah.
Really, it means a lot to us that you have joined us for this, that we can partner with you, and that you are so intimately involved with the bush, and especially in an area that we find so dear. So thank you for that. Anybody who wants to find out more about Sarai, you can go to oursarai.com, buy the products, know that the profits are going towards good causes, care for the wild down the southern Kruger. Is there anything else about Sarai you want to mention, Kevin?
No, I think we've covered it. This hour has been fantastic. It's been a lovely conversation. I'll definitely on again. I'll try and get my head around who we can get onto the platform. Maybe one of the Springboks if they win the Rugby World Cup. That'll be good. I know a lot of them absolutely adore Sarai and the conservation work that gets done, and love care for wild. So let me get my thinking cap on.
Yes.
To see if we can get somebody else on that can do this.
That'll
But
be great.
it's quite a wonderful morning being able to watch the bush like this. Absolutely loved it, and time has flown by.
It really has. Yeah, it's very special. Thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it, and we
Pleasure.
will hopefully chat to you again soon. And thank you to all of you for your questions and comments, and for joining us. The rest of Live at the Waterhole will continue now.
Thanks, Jim.
Cheers, Kevin. Right, everyone. Steph is going to take over. I will wait for him to join us so that I can greet him. Obviously, I won't be able to see him, but rather like with Kevin, I'll be able to say hello to him. And he's logging in now. I'm trying to sort out the technical details around that. He's in process. So we're at Naledi. For those of you who don't know where that is, Olifants North, which is in the Greater Kruger. And there's an elephant who's showing us its bottom and a bit of a tree. Hot down there today. I imagine fairly unpleasant at this time of the day. Trying to sort out a few things. And for those of you who have perhaps just joined us, or if you have just logged on, or you're wondering what you're watching, you've stumbled upon this stream. This is Live at the Waterhole, brought to you by Africam and WildEarth. And in this particular show, Sarai, which is a social enterprise run by ex-cricketer Kevin Peterson. And Kevin Peterson has just been on the show with us. And for the next 2 hours, you're going to be with Stefan Winterboer, the great naturalist of the Lowveld. We're just waiting for him to log on currently. It's live and interactive. You can talk to us anytime you like. I'm just trying to imagine being where that elephant is, flapping his ears. And it's really, it can be quite stupefying at this time of the day. And I'm watching those people drive past. If they've just come, if they're heading back from Game Drive now, they've probably been out for the best part of 5 hours. They are going to be seriously ravenous, seriously hot, and possibly not talking to each other anymore. Definitely not talking to their guide. Hopefully they saw some good stuff. I'm just trying to imagine, standing around in a place like this at this time of the day. It's got like what does it feel? It feels stupefying but big. It just feels kind of almost unrealistically large. I don't know if you know, if you can imagine what that means. All right, we're going to go over to Comfort Dam now, where it is probably a little cooler, and the flamingos are flamingoing around in the water when we get there. No, not even. No. Sorry, we're doing a high quality production map, and now we're at Comfort Dam. And there's not a flamingo in sight. That may have been a blacksmith lapwing that went past. Not sure entirely why we went across here. Gosh, that is a scene of some action. There we go. Oh, I'm afraid I wasn't fast enough to identify that bird that disappeared. Comfort Dam is just in the Northern Cape near Kimberley. Final controllers directing the show said, "Oh no, they've just all flown away." Well, that's clear. So now we're just going to talk about water and a bit of grass. You'll see that all around the country, this is what the bush looks like now, if it's not something that you're familiar with. And that is because the country is kind of taking in a collective gasp as we wait for the wet season to start. And it's always between now and kind of mid-November that things get hottest and driest and most desperate from a wildlife perspective. Oh, there's some coots. Red-knobbed coots. Looks like a heron there. No, there's a flamingo that thinks it's a duck. You can see it swimming off right of your picture. There it goes. One flamingo, one sad flamingo. I suspect that that fish eagle that you can see flying in the background there is what has caused all of the flamingos to disappear. In fact, that's definitely what's happened. Astoundingly, fish eagles do actually catch flamingos from time to time. Now, it is my great privilege, I hope, to introduce the great Stefan Winterboer. Hello, Steph. I'm not sure Steph can hear us. We'll wait for him to take over.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, James. I appreciate that greatly. My name's Steph Winterboer, as James probably mentioned, and I'm going to be taking over from him for the rest of the show and looking forward to it immensely. I see, as James has said there, we're looking at a pretty large flock of red-knobbed coot trying to stay out of the wind that is happening in Kimberley at the moment. And that in itself is a thing to see. Where I'm sitting at the moment, it is already 30 degrees, which is up in sort of mid 90s, and is going to be only increasing in temperature for the rest of the day. But for the rest of the country, it doesn't look like we have much in store except bad weather. But we do have a summary of the weather that we've got prepared for everybody, just to give you an idea of what it's going to be looking like from a weather perspective over the massive area that we have these cameras. So we'll get that lined up in a sec and we'll play it for you. But basically, we have cameras all the way from Kenya down to South Africa. We have them all the way from the borders of Mozambique all the way across into Namibia. And so a very wide area indeed. Alrighty, let's go and have a look at that weather. As you can see from that summary, over most of the areas that we've got cameras today, we are looking at temperatures in the high 90s, low hundreds. And in fact, one thing that jumped out at me there was our Okokweyo camera, which looks like it's in the sort of mid 30s today, which is great. We've got a bit of wind now on Camphors Dam, and what we're looking at here is this extraordinary conservation area. This is a water body 500 hectares in extent, and was conserved specifically to help the colony of lesser flamingo that live here. It's not what we're looking at over there. That is not a flamingo. That was a little grebe. And they're very tough to actually focus on because they don't spend a lot of time above the water. And then when they come up, they're in... quite often, they're not where you expect. They jink about under the water, obviously hunting what they do. There he goes. Pops up. Usually in pairs with one another. You can see them popping up all over the place. It's quite cool. I hope you enjoyed having James on the show and Kevin today. It's always great to have guest speakers and guys like James on the show, and to hear what everybody's getting up to and doing, and it's really nice. I've had a pretty relaxed morning, to be honest with you. Nothing too stressful, and looking forward to the rest of the weekend. In fact, I hope the same goes for all of you out there as well. Now, don't forget that the show is live. So what you're looking at now is what I'm looking at, and anything can happen at any time. And it is also interactive. And so please do remember to send through your comments, send through your questions, send through any bits and pieces of feedback or interesting information that you may or may not have. Just send it through. We can always discuss things. It's great to have chats with you and to hear from you as well. If you don't know how to do that, you just need to go and register on the WildEarth website, and it'll run you through a process. There in the distance, you can see a flying bird, some white birds with like blackish wing primaries on their wings, and those are flamingos. There you go. Talk about the flamingos we have. That's a pretty condensed flock, and what they're doing is they're probably just standing out of the wind. The weather looks ghastly there today. In fact, let's see what the weather is doing.
Chatting around a fire is an ancient practice that has connected humanity for centuries, and we want to keep it alive in our modern age. As an explorer, you'll have access to intimate gatherings with our naturalists, fascinating guests, and experts where we share knowledge, insights, and stories around a crackling fire. Rediscover the power of connection. Sign up to be an explorer today and experience the magic of WildEarth's Fireside Chats.
So these lesser flamingo would form a substantial part of the local population of flamingo. Their numbers do fluctuate wildly. I mean, there we probably got a couple of hundred birds, not much more than that. But in 2006, the bird count for lesser flamingo here was upwards of 80,000 birds, and would have represented a vast majority of the global population of a particular planet. So we're looking at a substantial amount of these globally threatened birds, and what is significant about this particular waterhole is that this is one of 7 breeding sites for these birds in the world, and the only one in South Africa. And so from a conservation perspective, a very important water body this. Cool to see these birds just hanging around. And they're mostly nocturnal when they're flying around. They don't fly around during the day. They spend the day preening their feathers and eating, moving anywhere up to a couple of 100 kilometers per evening between water bodies. So I see that the wind today in Kimberley is almost touching 30 kilometers per hour, and at about 16 it becomes uncomfortable. So it's about double the wind speed, at least by my measure of comfort, that I can sort of tolerate as being comfortable. Below 16, it's a bit gusty. There's a nice breeze. it brings in nice smells from around. But above 16, it starts to kick up dust and sand and blows things around. And then at around 25 to 30, you won't be able to put vases on a table or flower arrangements outside. Dust will be flown up into your face and sort of things like that. So to give you an idea of what the context is, this is going to be pretty uncomfortable, and no wonder the birds are clustered around. I don't think much else will be happening today at Campers, but it will give us a great view of birds together. Like that opening shot from James when he handed over to me was a couple of hundred red-knobbed coots together. Here we have a couple of hundred flamingos all together in the same shot, which is quite nice. As the weather is the weather. It is what it is. Being a geologist by education, the timescales that I was used to from a contextualized point of view in the natural environment are always very long. So things like dramatic weather change to a geologist have no real meaning over the time scale that most people use, like in my lifetime or historically speaking or in the last 1,000 years. To a geologist, that doesn't really mean anything. We've actually been in a very, very comfortable zone from a mammal point of view, at least anyway, for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years already. And although there are seasonal variations and climatic conditions every 10 years or 100 years, whatever you want to call it, the fact is that we live in a period in our planet's history where it really is conducive to us as humans being relatively comfortable. Definitely will not always be the case, as history has proven many, many, many times over. Gosh, look at all these red-knobbed coots. Distinguished by the black colouring, white face, and then the two, on adults at least anyway, the two red knobs on top of their forehead, where their beak and sort of face intersect their feathers. Loves these sort of open bodies of water. You do find them close to reed edges, of course, but they far prefer these open stretches of water. All right, but why don't we go and have a look at one of our other cameras? And the reason for that is because Live at the Waterhole show is exactly that. We've got many waterholes that we can look at, and we need to celebrate the diversity that we have in habitat and view. And so we are going to be going a couple of 100 kilometers north to Tau Lodge in Madikwe. And just like that, we've gone from cloud to sunshine and the world's largest bird. We've got 2 male ostrich there, as well as a small troop of chacma baboon, and off on the left-hand side, just off center, we've got what looks to be a single Egyptian goose. It's quite nice seeing that ostrich there, actually. Ostriches can't fly. The heaviest bird that can fly also occurs in Africa, called a Kori bustard, and tops the scales at about 9 kilograms, 9 to 11 kilograms, where ostriches are far heavier than that. And I'm actually just trying to find exactly how heavy an ostrich is. I don't want to go and make a statement here and then find myself painted into a corner, right? So, according to my book, which currently doesn't, here we go. So, here we go. So, ostriches are up to 2 meters tall and anywhere from 60 to 80 kilograms. So, a substantial amount bigger than what the Kori bustard weighs, and of course, much bigger than what the atmosphere can sustain in flight. And so these birds really do run around. They walk around on their legs, obviously relying on their speed to evade predators, and they can run quite fast. They can do about 60 kilometers an hour. But frankly, in my experience, lion don't seem to battle too much with ostrich. They catch them very easily, especially when the bush gets a bit thicker. I knew this was a male because of the black feathers. The females or males, the females have dark browny colored feathers, like a rusty brown colored feathers, grayish brown rather than rusty brown, but grayish brown. They eat entirely plant material, leaves and seeds and seed pods. They also eat flowers and small fruits, so they don't feed on insects. But they are drawn to shiny things, and so I don't know. There's a lot of comedic video out there about ostriches, sticking their heads through windows and picking up engagement rings and necklaces and such. I suppose very similar to crows. Yo, Nancy, firstly, good morning, Nancy. And secondly, you'd like to know how big an ostrich egg is. So, an ostrich egg weighs about 1.5 kilograms and is the largest single cell on Earth. But you said now 1.5 kilograms is 2.2 kilograms to a pound. Sorry, 2.2 pounds to a kilogram, or whatever it is. So let's just go and do, and you'd hold it easily in one hand. But it would sort of be much bigger than what your hand's bigger than a toilet roll. So it's about 2 toilet rolls. Well, let's go and see what this is in pounds quickly. Give me 1 sec. So 3.3 pounds is what a ostrich egg weighs. And let me see if I can get you the statistic on how many equivalent chicken eggs it is. So one ostrich egg is equivalent to 24 chicken eggs. So to give you an idea of that. So 3 pounds, 1.5 kilograms, 24 chicken eggs. That's one egg. And the ostrich will lay anywhere sort of from 5 to 25 eggs at a time in a nest once a year. So really quite remarkable, to be honest with you. They are really quite remarkable birds. So I'm pretty chuffed for one that we're having a look at these two birds. It's the first time I've seen ostrich on the video feeds. Although I'm not doing too much at the moment. Look at that baboon on the left over there talking about doing stuff.
Hi, my name is Claire. WildEarth has been part of this home for many years as it connects us to the bush and the culture that we love and miss so much. I became an explorer so that other people around the world can get to experience the African bush in this unique way as well. I am beyond excited that I was drawn to win the prize at Ambakala Game Reserve for 3 nights. It is truly a dream come true.
Sign up today and you could be the one experiencing it for yourself.
Then we have another greater kudu, male, coming in. And they do hang around in these bachelor herds with one another. They're not really structured herds like you would think like a buffalo herd would be, or an elephant herd. These herds sort of form and then unform again without any sort of noticeable pattern. But frankly, that is a pretty epic bull kudu. Loved him. And then we've got an impala that's just come into view, drinking at the water, and that crocodile is just sunning itself on the bank. The crocodiles are cold-blooded, and so need the environment to manage their metabolism. And it's come out of the water to soak up some of the sun's rays. Let's see if this kudu is going to be coming down to the water to drink, or if he's just busy marching coincidentally across the view of the camera. More baboons. Looks like those kudu were just coincidentally walking across the view of the camera, weren't really interested in drinking, which is bizarre, but anyway. It's neither here nor there, I suppose. Then we have that young, looks like a male impala. We should just be able to see its horns. No, I don't really see. Here we have another coot, bottom of the screen, and some blackwing stilt in the view of the crocodile. They stand a very small chance of being preyed upon by that croc. That crocodile is at the size where most of its diet's going to be made up of fish. And there's no doubt that with the shrinking water, the catfish are getting easier to catch. And then that crocodile's got not a belly full, but he'll have some fish in his belly, which ostriches seem to be on the move. They can actually be quite aggressive. But one of the key takeaways from an ostrich is looking at their legs. If their legs are pink, then you know that the chances of them being more aggressive is heightened. They can flush their legs a pinkish color. And none of those legs look pink, although it's actually quite hard to tell. No, they don't look pink or red. For many, many years prior to cars and Mr. Henry Ford making cars available to the masses, ostriches were farmed in South Africa very successfully, making many very wealthy farmers making many successful farmers very wealthy. And why the car stole the thunder was the fact that people couldn't wear these elaborate hats anymore with these ostrich feather decorations. The car's speed would destroy the decoration, apparently, and so the industry died. And in some places in South Africa, you've got these museums and buildings that have been made out of the old ostrich barons' mansions. And I, for one, did not believe my eyes when I looked at the extravagant wealth that these guys lived with at the time, and then how it all just came to a disastrous end. Nowadays, ostrich leather is used in bespoke shoes as a very high quality leather with some interesting characteristics. I can't remember now what the characteristics are, but certain portions of the shoe, certain panels, are best made from ostrich leather. It imparts a certain characteristic to that area of the shoe. And of course, handbags and belts and other things are also made with ostrich leather. And then ostrich meat is a very good quality meat. and is a delicacy on many menus. You find it in our local supermarkets as well. So ostriches are still farmed, but definitely not at the volumes that they were when their feathers were so prized. All right. Again, we are going to be constantly surprised by what's popping up at all our camera feeds today. We almost got, I'm not going to say we've got too many to choose from. I enjoy popping around from camera to camera. And so why don't we go and have a look at what's going on at Naledi? So here we've come 1,000 kilometers east. We're still in South Africa. We're now adjacent to the world famous Kruger National Park. And we're at Africam's Naledi Dam Cam. And what we're having a look at here is a southern giraffe, or common giraffe as they're called here. Different to the Maasai giraffe that we'll get in Kenya at the Africam Aldonyo Cam. And this particular giraffe has decided to come down to the pan for a bit of a meal. She is a full-grown female giraffe. And I'm basing that assessment on the fact that her horn tips are tufted, not bald at the top. You can see there that's quite clear. And then she lacks any noticeable protrusions on her belly. But she's a big female. It took me a while to actually decide on whether she was a male or female because she's really big. Now watch her mouth. They eat leaves and twigs, but they have a prehensile tongue that can stick out far further than the end of their nose. And they will use that tongue to grasp at leaves and bring it into reach of the mouth, and then they'll use their lips to strip the branch of its leaves. And let's just watch that for a second, because to be honest with you, watching a giraffe eat is, I don't know, it's sort of otherworldly, to be honest. Not only is the giraffe as an animal so fantastically shaped, but then it's got this mouth apparatus which defies imagination, to be honest. And the thorns that they can strip past with their lips is just another hooked, vicious thorns. She's having a grand breakfast this morning. Absolutely smashing every leaf that she can get her eyes on. There you go. Look at that tongue licking her nose key. She's now just filling her rumen, so the objective here is for her to ingest as much food as possible. The objective, there's another giraffe, so we have a journey of giraffe. The objective here is not to chew the food fine, it's to get it into the rumen. She will then spend another portion of her day regurgitating the contents of her rumen and chewing it far smaller and mixing it with saliva. And then that will move into the second chamber of her tummy, and then third, fourth, and relatively speaking, take a bit of time to work through, but she'd be able to get a lot of nutrients from the leaves that she is eating. There we go. Gosh, we are being treated by giraffe today. This is a bull giraffe. You can see the tops of his horns are bald. And he's going to gift us with the drink from the well. So female there in the background, having her turn at the bush. This male looks like he's wanting to have a drink. Come on. See the oxpeckers flying in and landing on the giraffe at the moment. In this area of the Kruger National Park, it's rare to see a yellow-billed oxpecker. Many years ago, they were decimated by a pesticide used on cattle in the area and had to be I can't remember what the name. Had to be brought in from other areas to repopulate the local birds. There were 50 pairs brought in, as far as I remember, and they've then re-established a population of birds in the Kruger. But it's rare to see the yellow-billed oxpecker in this area. It's not uncommon, but it is rare. And so most of those oxpeckers that we're seeing on the giraffe are probably red-billed oxpeckers, and they are the ones responsible for keeping wounds clean and combing through the hair. They've got these combs on their beaks, and they comb through the hair, and you can see that bird on the shoulder. They're doing exactly that, just combing through the hair, cleaning off any mites, ticks, parasites on the giraffe, and getting a meal in the process. Why are you not going to go and drink out of the... That giraffe didn't know what to do with the well. Maybe he wanted to look at his full magnificence and his reflection there. That is very weird. Why would he do that? You can see there sort of back left of middle in the background, you can see a tree with some yellow frosting on it. That's a knobthorn. And there's so many of them flowering at the moment. It's one of the first trees of any, of any real significant stature to flower at this time of the year. The bush has just been perfumed by their scent. It's this very light perfume, but when there's so many of them, there you go. So our Zoomy, thank you very much, has zoomed in on that oxpecker combing the fur. They are big animals. They weigh. There we go. There's one in the back there. No yellow spot on the beak, and so all red. And so absolutely. What is pretty bizarre is those wood shavings on the back of the giraffe. You know what? They're probably flowers from the knobthorn. So what's happened is this giraffe has been feeding on a knobthorn, probably the new growth, and the flowers have dusted its fur, giving it that almost looks like sawdust on its fur. That was a bit of a mystery that took me a while to solve. Alrighty. So we have a few other pans in this particular area of the world. Why don't we go and have a look at Qatar pan and see what's hanging around there? Oh, goody. So this is a couple of kilometers further north. We're still adjacent to the Kruger in what's called the Greater Kruger National Park, which is made up of a bunch of privately owned pieces of land that are joined and adjacent to the publicly owned Kruger National Park, and together, collectively, they're called the Greater Kruger National Park. We're at Afrikam's Qatar Pan, and we have two bull elephant, and surprisingly, our terrapin friend, there in the center of the screen next to the reed, he's come out of the water and he's busy sunning himself. And usually he's quite shy. These big giants haven't scared him in the least. You can see the mud on the floor in the foreground here. What are you going to do, big guy? Getting some sand out of his eye. They get big when they are... We've got mud on the camera. You can see the lens has a muddy dot just below center. That is from an elephant spraying mud out of his trunk and onto the camera. I'll have to get someone to go and clean it. You can see this bull elephant's broken his tusk off, and he probably would have done that either through feeding or fighting.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search hashtag WildEarthFanOfTheMonth and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
You can see by the dark marks on the floor underneath this elephant's feet that this elephant probably had its mud bath right here, and they, as we've seen on other days, they quite aggressively fling mud onto their bellies. And I think what happened here was that he probably misshot it slightly or just timed it perfectly and sprayed the camera with a muddy blotch. You can see that sort of just below center. And you can see the evidence of the mud bath, the extent of it stretching across the ground in front of us of the fresh mud there. And then, of course, you can see the ultimate objective there on the back of this elephant. But how well he managed to cover his flanks and his head and behind his ears. It's a hot day here. We've gone from 29 to 32 degrees centigrade literally in the 50 minutes we've been up and running today. It's going to be one of those days. I'm looking forward to it. Small breeze. Bird life around my house this morning has been really great. I sat and had my breakfast this morning with my partner, and we just sat listening to the birds. It was really great. So for those of you joining us for the first time or just enjoying us randomly on a Saturday, this is a live experience, and we're busy watching this as it's happening right now at Afrikam's Cat Eye Pan up here in the Greater Kruger National Park. It's 18 minutes past 11, in fact. And it is also an interactive show. So my name is Stefan Winterboer, and you can interact with me by asking questions on our website. And you can do that by registering yourself there. And I'd love to hear from you. You are welcome to send through a comment, or you can send through a question. You can send through a topic for discussion. You can send through a random fact, or even a bit of hearsay or folklore or whatever, and we can have a chat about it and see if we can find some content on one of the number of cameras that we've got placed all over southern Africa, all the way into Namibia. We've got a camera in Zimbabwe, we've got one in Kenya. And so let's see if we can find something for you. Right now we've got this herd of bull elephant that have come down to this pan for a mud bath. And you can see the mud drying, the dark mud blotches drying in the foreground. You can see how they wet the bank on the opposite side of the pan. And they dirtied the camera as well. You can see the muddy blotch in the middle of the camera. The effect of their exuberance. Leslie, we were having a debate on, well, I was having a discussion with everybody on how old I thought this elephant was. And so you've asked a great question. It's like, how can you tell an Ellie is an oldie by looking at it? So, Leslie, there's a couple of things. From about 45 years old, 45 years old, elephants' skulls seem to just dramatically increase in size. It's almost like they accelerate. And I don't know if it's because their bodies lose condition at a rapid rate, or whether they do actually just put on bulk on their skulls, but their skulls become bigger, almost out of proportion to their bodies. They also have tatty ears, and a lifetime of walking through the bush and fighting with other bulls scars them up in some ways, usually on their ears, sometimes on their tails, and other places. They then have rather big tusks, so their tusks are also large and out of proportion, older than 45 years old. And this particular bull has got some quite thick ivory, including the one that he broke off on the other side. But his ears are in relatively good condition. His head doesn't look out of proportion. His body's still in really good shape. He's got all the tassels at the end of his tail. He's got a thick bush of hair at the end of his tail. Whereas a real oldie, they get bald at the end of their tail. So yeah, those are all the markers on telling whether an elephant is sort of older than 45. So to give some context, old bull elephant are 45 to 55 in this area. They don't live much longer than that, even when in pristine areas for longevity amongst elephant. And the reason for that is that elephant gets 6 sets of teeth. We get 2. We get a milk set and an adult set of molars. Elephants get 6 sets of molars because of, they've just evolved that way, and they've done it because their diet is very coarse and woody. But once the 6th set is gone, they battle to chew their food small enough and ingest it in enough quantities to keep themselves fed, and pretty much that's the end. And so really it's their diet that determines how old they get. If their diet consists of a lot of very coarse material, then they won't live to that long. And if their diet consists of very soft, sort of mushy vegetation, then they'll live a little bit longer than the average. But here in the Kruger, it's sort of just above 50 that they get to. And my estimate on this particular bull elephant is 25 to 35. But it's a very subjective view, that, Leslie. You'd need a veterinarian, and you'd probably need to dart this elephant and put it to sleep for a while in order to accurately gauge its age. It's not something that you can just pick out of the sky. It's always going to be subjective, and therefore dependent on whichever specialist is giving you their opinion. And of course, you're welcome to yours, or anyone else out there is welcome to theirs as well. I'm definitely not committed to that particular estimate. And if you feel that you've got more to add to it, please do send through your comment, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, but Madikwe is going to be cooking today because it's so hot, and because of that, these pans are going to be really heaving. And so, what I think, why don't we go and pop in and see what's happening to Tao? Flick of a switch, and we've come 1,000 kilometers west, and the scene has changed from 2 ostrich and some kudu to a breeding herd and baboon to a breeding herd, some waterbuck and some baboon. So that's just the nature of the way things go around this time of the year. That these waterholes end up being intense areas of activity until the rains start falling, and then they become virtually overnight. They go from being very, very busy to being vacant and rather boring. These are 2 bull waterbuck in the foreground with the horns. You can see a female there just below the elephant on the left. She doesn't have horns. And they've got that sort of very thick body, almost mule deer-esque, with the white ring on their butts. This male waterbuck is wanting to cross that mud flat to go and drink some water instead of going to the beach to drink. I don't know what he's trying to do. Very powerful. For a waterbuck to get stuck, it will take a lot. They are really gifted at lunging and will readily take to water to escape predators. And as hobbies, you've sent in a comment this morning. So firstly, good morning, and then secondly, they're such elegant creatures, 100%. I don't know. I've said a few times. My perception of elephants are that they sort of epitomize the African continent for me. They are in equal measures sort of every emotion that you can think of. They enormous and majestic and awesome and incredible, and form pivotal roles in the stabilization of the continent's ecosystems. And then on the opposite hand, they're tragic and they quite sad, when you see elephant hunted for their ivory and snared indiscriminately. It's a tough thing to witness. They're big and it's bizarre. But off of that melancholy note, we've got there on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got an African spoonbill. We saw him yesterday. There's a pair of them that arrived at this pan, and they're quite uniquely shaped birds. Not that other birds aren't in their own special way. Off to the left, those of you with sharp eyes will notice a tourist that's standing at a viewing deck. That's because the Africam Tau Lodge Cam is built next to Tau Lodge. And it is a long weekend in South Africa today. We're celebrating Heritage Day. We're celebrating our heritage tomorrow. And there's also the World Cup rugby on at the moment. And South Africa is doing really well. We're in contention for a top spot. And there's a game tonight. And so South Africa's got a very good mood around it at the moment. There's a lot going on. Right, and then in the center, just to carry on with the birds, we've obviously got that grey heron, which is just below center. The big dark bird on the left-hand side of that is a spur-winged goose, the largest goose in the country. And then we've got a flock of white-faced duck exiting the screen there. That waterbuck got now mud splashed in his face. See if he's going to cross this mud flat again instead of just walking on the grassy island here where the baboon is. Yeah, he's decided that he wants to keep his toes dirty. Good for him. Shona, you've asked an interesting question. What animals will struggle the most in these high temperatures? Gosh, Shona. I've noticed birds when it's really hot do take a lot of strain. They sit and they pant, or they got a thing called a gular flap, which they vibrate their throat to evaporate moisture. Elephant obviously get really hot, but you don't, they make their way to water and then wash themselves off. You don't see them struggling under trees and really battling with the heat. I noticed that with birds quite a lot. You notice them battling with the heat, where they've actively stopped doing, looking for food and preening, and then just busy trying to cool themselves down. But that's a great question. Lion also battle with the heat. They're covered in the fur that they are. You see them sleeping up in the shade. They can't move around in the heat of the day, and quite often just lie there panting dramatically sometimes. Everything else seems to be pretty tolerant. I mean, most things are able to get out of the sun in some way or another, and get out of the temperature in some way or another. But that's a great question, Shana. I'm going to keep on thinking about that, actually, and seeing if I can give you a little bit more of a detailed answer. Such a great reflection of that waterbuck in the water. Yeah. Such a great view, actually. This these cameras that we have some majestic views, and I personally, for one, actually, I was going to say that I enjoy these big views and vistas, but it's not entirely true. Yesterday we went to our Kwamaritan camera feed, and there the bush sort of grows right down onto the edge of the pan, and I enjoyed that little adventure immensely. We've got Tau with its incredible floodplain, and then we obviously have these cameras that can zoom in. Yeah, looking like a log. They usually hunt from from just below the surface. I don't know if you noticed, as the bird flew over, you could see the shadow, the little insects that were trapped in the small water column all went crazy, and the surface of the water was pocked by their movement. Anyway, so this crocodile would hunt from below the surface, but crocodiles of this size are mainly fish eaters, and so I don't think that there's any danger to anything here. But rest assured, crocodiles are supremely opportunistic. Let's see if we can stay with this crocodile. They're always doing something special. And when one starts to move around like this, you don't quite know it's hunting. What is it doing? So that croc's turned around. There he goes. We witnessed a hunt the other day with a crocodile doing a very similar thing. Same pool, actually. And although I've just stated that, crocodile this size are predominantly fish eaters, they are also supremely opportunistic. And that little baboon would need to watch out if he got close enough for this crocodile to strike at it. This crocodile would absolutely take a chance at that baboon, and if he could get away with it. Something that I'm very aware of is crocodiles, to be honest. Even though I've been living in this area for 30 years, 25 years, I approach these water bodies with caution and trepidation every single time. And the stories I have of friends of mine that are busy working in and around this area only go to support that fear. See that crocodile? Is he trying to hunt one of these baboons? Is he fishing? Where are you going and what are you doing? Is he going to try and set up an ambush here? There's an elephant reflection. That's so cool. Some white-faced duck top left. And it's a dark bird. I don't know if it's a black crake or a coot yet. Crakes have yellow beaks and red legs, or red beaks and yellow legs. I don't remember which one now, but one of the more aquatic birds. A female baboon in the background there. I don't think this crocodile's hunting the baboons. It would need to be a lot closer to the bank to get that right. None of these baboons are approaching the open water. There's that elephant. Crocodile making its way. You never do know. I watched a crocodile smash a full-grown male lion once. And we've actually watched crocodiles kill cheetah here. I don't know if it was a Tau, but we watched it on WildEarth. And so, like I said, just when you think you know bush, it teaches you that it doesn't need you to think for it. do exactly what it wants. See the water top left next to the African thing. There's another elephant in reflection. The spoonbill is coming to show us that bizarrely shaped beak. If you missed the comment yesterday, in case you were otherwise occupied, that beak that that spoonbill has more sensory nerve organelle than what you do at the end of your fingers. Giving the crocodile a wild birth. And what it's doing is hunting for small fish and insects. It's able to feel the insects, so it sits with its beak open, like you see it there, and waves it from side to side. And there you go, caught something there. You watch that snap of its beak. What's crocodile going to do? Not going to hunt the bird. Boogeyman in the pan. I don't know what the hell it's going to be doing. Hunt the bird? Is it hunting fish? Is it feeling insecure for some reason? It's going to go and try and set up an ambush for one of the baboons. I just don't know. This crocodile is just busy deciding what it wants to do. Is it going to get out of the water? Is it going to stay in the water? Is it going to go and hunt? Is it not? They're cold-blooded animals, and so they use their environment to manage their metabolism. And maybe he just doesn't feel that he needs to be all the way out of the water in order to keep his body temperature where it needs to be. Maybe there's some other plan here. What are you busy doing? Doing in the background. It's still a mystery as to what this crocodile is doing. I'm busy, I don't know, I'm throwing around ideas and seeing, are you fishing? Are you setting up an ambush? Are you hunting fish? Are you sunning yourself? Are you just having a swim to see what's happening all over the place, deciding what you're going to do next? Having a couple of 100 million years head start on humans, I would imagine that anything is possible. Peter, you've sent in a comment, so good morning first to you, and then secondly, 100%, we also love those spoonbills. They got such a fascinating, they definitely do have a fascinating tendency. It's really cool. So much going on. Okay, so this, you can see this crocodile's like joking around a little bit now. I wonder if he's trying to sense he's fishing. What he's trying to do is catch fish there, and he's waiting for the fish to come past him, and then they strike out, usually sideways. You see, the last time, there you go. You see the fish jumping there. Yes, that's so cool. Okay, so now we know exactly what this crocodile was doing. You watch the fish trying to get away from him there. Missed opportunity, unfortunately. Let's see if he'll set up his ambush somewhere else. Chasing the heron away. Very sneaky things, eh? Yeah, 100%. We're having some comments coming in saying these birds are so relaxed with this crocodile hunting right next to them. I mean, even the baboons aren't really showing any interest. That crocodile's now going into another bay. I would imagine he's either going to get out or he's going to set up his ambush again. He's trying to herd fish into a corner where they can't get out. He's moving quite quickly there. Got the sperming goose up. Anyway, out of view from the camera for now, which is what it is. Gives us an opportunity to sort of re-establish what else is around this pan. And I see right there in the top, we've got some bull kudu that have come in and joined the pan with the ellies. Magnificently spiral-horned antelope. It is entirely possible to get lost in these little micro dramas that are happening all over the place and forget that there's an entire pan. And then also, if we carry on going further right, there's the best mud wallow that we have access to. And these ellies are making their way straight there for what will arguably be a bath. And of course, watching ellies swim is such a pleasure. That is, there we go, there's even elephants in there already. That is and there's more ostrich as well. Or, yeah, there's more. That mud bath is 6 feet to 8 feet deep and is the best mud wallow that I've ever seen for elephant. They come in here and they have the best time, and I'm expecting that we're going to see that herd pull in here now, as well as these two young bulls, and for there to be a splash fest. No, not a pool for drinking, that's for sure. A pool for cooling down and swimming, having a shower. And it's any number of comics that we watch. We watch elephant climbing on each other. They get stuck and they slip on the banks. Mom has to help them. They have panic. Bulls kick and splash at the banks. And it really is just such a wonderful place. And they all get up over there, and it's such a hassle. There you go. There's an ellie swimming on the right, submerging virtually completely. Let's see what these youngsters do. They love the swim. Keep on wanting to get down the bank on the left, tusking into the... You gotta imagine what that smells like. It would be manky. Decided to not go down the steep bank. They'll come around from the back. But it's always interesting in that they kick the mud closest to the banks. It seems to be a habit shared amongst most of the ellies that we witness at mud wallows. We'll watch these guys tentatively coming in, kick at the mud, and then this one so badly wants to get in here, but doesn't know how to get off the bank. He's just going to come and have Big Brother show him exactly how it's done. Watch that little one.
Do you want to contribute towards leaving a legacy for future generations? Raise Your Hand for Rhino strives to keep wild animals wild, with a focus on anti-poaching, conservation projects, habitat management, and veterinary services. Raise Your Hand for Rhino needs your help. Go to the WildEarth website and donate to the cause. Raise Your Hand for Rhino, leaving a legacy for future generations. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
You can see how precocious these youngsters are. They enjoy following the older ones' lead, and if the older ones kick the bank, then they kick the bank. If the older ones tusk the bank, then they tusk the bank. And that's how they learn. They copycat, and that'll hold them in good stead for the rest of their lives. And these youngsters will come around the bank now. I'm not wanting to slip it. Must be. There we go. He's now gone down, that big guy. Epic. The youngster in the bank's also gone down. It is just. This wallow is the most tremendous wallow that we have around. The Ellies love it. So to a degree, elephants really enjoy water. They can swim really well as well. And in water that's much deeper than what they can walk through. I think it's just nice. I think they're heavy and water buoys them up. On a hot day like this where it's going to get to 100 degrees here today, 40. Just being able to coat yourself in mud and have the wind blow it cool is just a great way of making sure that you stay cool. And this guy is absolutely plastering himself. I don't even know why he ended up getting his trunk dirty. He just needed to lie down. Watch that they don't slip. He is having the best swim. And his trunk comes up for a breath. That is so cool. And having a snooze in the water. Michelle, you've sent through a comment today, so epic to hear from you. And you're saying Ellie sure know how to have fun around the water, 100%. This week elephant have been teaching me a lesson. The ability to work on being present and be a human being rather than a human doing. And elephant definitely are helping me learn that lesson, or they're reinforcing it. They are definitely beings rather than doings at the moment. It's just that one sitting there having a bit of a snooze on his feet, resting his back legs, trunk draped over his tusks. And this other guy is just having a proper swim. There's no rush. Everyone will get into the water in their turn. This is really great. Here comes one for its swim. They usually splash themselves with mud before coming in for a lie down. A little waste of effort, actually, but maybe it dislodges things as well, like bits and pieces of dirt or parasites or whatever. They've absolutely just plastered everything. They've plastered the bank. They have plastered things. And in fact, elephant, buffalo, rhinoceros, warthog to a degree, hippo, they'll all cause compaction of the banks and of the surface below the water. And they also introduce mud and clay from other areas into water sources like this that are busy washing off of that elephant. And it all goes towards plastering and sealing up the subsurface of those pans. And this is, you're watching the formation of a permanent pan. If you have a puddle in the bush, a tree falls over or whatever and creates a puddle, and something goes and wallows in there and compacts the surface and the base, brings in clay. The next year it holds water for a bit longer, and you've got more that come in and use it. And eventually you get these natural pans occurring, and it's all part of the process out here. And what you're watching is how that works. You're watching how these pans are made at the time of the year that they get made. And that elephant hasn't got a tail, submitting to being tested by that male for her reproductive status. The older one's already moving off. I don't think these babies will stick around for long. Mom and aunties are already going, so they won't hang around for much. We'll leave the plan to the bulls. I have absolutely no doubt that there'd be much more Ellies coming down for a swim today. But as we've often said, the joy of this Live at the Waterhole show is that we have access to many cameras across many different areas, and it would be a pity if we didn't go and have a look at some of them and what they've got to show us as well. And so why don't we head off east to Katai Pan and go and have a look at what's around there. So here we're back in the Kruger National Park, close to where I'm sitting now, and we've still got the same two Ellies that have been here now for, close on an hour, which is atypical for this area, actually. Usually they just come and go pretty quick. I don't think it's the same small one. It might be. Definitely the same big one who's been standing here for an age. That head shake was because we have a vehicle. These areas are not managed in such a way, like, that was probably just a logistics vehicle from the nearby camp. And that little head shake was just what elephants do when they're slightly disturbed. It also gives testimony to how wonderful these cameras are. We can, without the elephants even knowing we're here, we're watching them, and we're watching them very closely and in great detail, and we're not having any effect on them whatsoever. And I think that's a noteworthy observation, because it's the objective of any field guide to observe animals as close as you can without disturbing them. It is not the objective of a field guide to disturb the animals or the subjects that they're watching. Observe and interpret. Melissa, well, thank you very much for the compliment. And then secondly, also, I totally agree with you. It's both relaxing and informative to listen to these. A great thing about the Live at the Waterhole show is that it's narrated by a naturalist like myself, and that you're not just watching these animals and not learning anything about it, that I can share a lifetime of knowledge and skills and experience at interpreting what we're looking at. And I don't know, I find that the television itself, the entertainment, the slow pace and relatively, and the pictures that we're watching are just amazing. Very diverse. And so I completely agree with how relaxing it is. It hasn't got that frantic pace that we used to with other television. You fed too much information in a very short space of time, usually completely irrelevant. This guy's got a beautiful tail. I know we were using his tail as a marker on his age, but his tail fur, tail hair, almost stretches all the way to the ground. Whereas you can see that the one on the left hand side, the much younger elephant, hasn't got a hairy tail at all. Perfectly okay. You obviously also get some hairy elephant and some not so hairy elephant. See how Terrapin has disappeared off the far bank. He's decided that no, too much pressure, and he disappeared below the surface again.
Do you want to know what the WildEarth team has been busy with lately? Join us on September 24th for a company update town hall. We will update our explorers on the growth and change that we have been experiencing and what more is to come. Watch it live on your nearest device. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
There's a very good chance that this elephant sprays the camera again. See, he's now decided that the little bit of water that he had on his flanks had dried off to a point where he might as well reapply the mud. And this pan definitely isn't as deep as the one that we were at Tau. You can have a look at that. So cool, that dust being sprayed up where the mud landed. I can generate some force with the flick of their trunk. Oops. Making space for some more food. Such a fantastic compost. Because the digestive system of an elephant isn't that good. They hunt up fermenters and bulk feeders, and so although they do chew their food relatively fine, most of it comes out pretty much the same way as it went in. And lots of seeds, lots of seed banks, lots of vegetable matter, a lot of water actually in a very compact ball, and fertilizes the bush all the way around. So very important boluses those. Watching this elephant have a shower is so great. Have a shower. Just resting his trunk on his tusks again. Just a different pace of life. Eh? Alrighty. Why don't we go and have a look and see what the scenery has turned into around Tower Lodge? Back into Madekwe, and we've got that herd of elephant, possibly the same one we were looking at, having now made its way away from the mud wallow, is now leaving the water. And we've got some kudu, some wildebeest, baboons, and that spoonbill, the bird, the white bird on the left-hand side. There's the activity that we can see. There's also some springbuck top right. It's an interesting mix, it's changing mixes here of animals every, I would say, half an hour or so, which is to be expected around this time of the year. Definitely slow down in summertime. January, February, we'd be lucky to see one change in 3 hours. And so definitely revel in the fact that we've got such a great frequency of different mixes of species around this water. This is baboon just having a chill out on his mud flat. The blazing sun, gosh. Arnold, you've hit the nail right on the head with your statement. Well, it's a question you sent through. Are you able to identify herds by the features of its members? 100% yes, absolutely. Usually the oldest members, because they carry the most life knocks or signs of the passage of the time, and individuals will build up scars and traits and characteristics over time. So damaged tusks or particularly scarred up ears or other body parts, and then the mixes of those as well. And so you might get a female with a particularly bent tusk, and then she has a baby with no tail, for instance. And then you'd be able to pick up those characteristics just by observing. So if you're a very observant person and you care for such things, you can start to jot down references of the matriarchs and of any noticeable babies, because they're obviously going to be with the herd for the longest period of time before leaving. And so the oldest and the youngest with, like no tail or a limp or, particular scar in the ear. Here we have a view of the springbuck and of a blue wildebeest. Yesterday there were so many of them just lying up in the blazing sun. See the mirage in the distance, creating the waviness as the air, as light is going through. Oh gosh, that's a beautiful kudu. Different densities of atmosphere. One is slightly bent as it goes through these different columns of air, giving us those wavy lines that we see in those white rocks out there in the distance. Right, a camera that we haven't had a look at in quite some time is Juma. Why don't we go and have a look at that? It's a camera near and dear to our heart. This is Djuma Private Game Reserve, also in the Sabi Sand. One of the longest running webcams in the world, as far as I know. And what we're having a look at here is some hippo. So we're looking at a pod of hippo. There look to be 3 hippo here, and probably more. Hippo being aquatic during the day and pretty far-ranging out of the water during nighttime. They feed at nighttime, so they're classified as nocturnal and amphibious because of that. And quite closely related to whales, which are their common ancestor. And as such, interestingly, have no sebaceous glands on their skin other than glands that help them secrete a substance called norhipposudoric acid and hipposudoric acid, which helps them from an antibacterial, antimicrobial point of view, and obviously helps look after their skin in these wet, moist environments, and also from a sun tanning point of view. Those 2 compounds providing both a suntan and a healing ointment. But they don't have any glands that help them with scent marking, and so you find that hippo use latrines when they're outside of the water. They do obviously defecate in the water, but they use latrines outside the water. And at nighttime, they will spend considerable time and effort sniffing around these latrines as a form of post, I suppose. A news post. Who's been here? What hormonal status are they? It's really quite amazing to see. These are also very similar to the elephant bulk feeders, only they only eat grass and water plants.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of sunset safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
usually the water ends at this tree around about. Give you an idea of what the usual extent of this water is, and then it's dried up to a little puddle in the 2015-2016 drought years that you could jump across basically. And now the water is so deep and so abundant that we even have hippos. Calls for some celebration, absolutely. Although it does add a danger element, specifically around walking around at night time. Hippo are deadly and share the top spot in Africa next to crocodile at killing the most people. Hippo and crocodile share that amongst the mammals, with of course malaria taking, I think, top spot from a disease point of view, a couple of million individuals every year. Sounded like I caught a very brief. I don't have the audio from the camera coming through in my office, so I can't actually hear what you're hearing. But very briefly, I caught a snippet of the hippo busy making its characteristic sort of laughing call. What a pleasure to hear. There's a youngster that you can see. So we've got 4 hippo. That hippo that's just in front of this one in the foreground definitely isn't long enough to be the same hippo that's sticking out the back of the one. So looks like we've got hippo, 4 hippo here. It's a pretty cool pod. It's probably made up of mostly females, from the adults at least anyway. With this little baby, maybe we're lucky enough to have an adult male here. It just doesn't look like it. And they would have most probably have come from a bigger pan or dam in the area, or the Sand River, which is all within, there are lots of them around, and all within easy walking distance. And they would have come here to avoid the competition around those more permanent, bigger water sources. Lots of hippo there, and so lots of competition for space and lots of competition for food. It just makes sense that in a wetter year you spread yourselves out, and you then have access to food with less competition, more food with less competition. Slight picture freeze. All right, so obviously we had a gremlin creep into the feed there. So don't worry about that. We do bring you these live and interactive, or this live and interactive show from some of the most remote places on Earth. And sometimes what happens is gremlins creep into the feed, and we have to jump across to, in this particular case, Afrikam's Qatar Pan again, and leave our technicians, a great bunch of guys, time to sort it out. Noticeably, as we come back here, I noticed that our terrapin friend has climbed out of the water again, so he's obviously feeling less intimidated now that this big guy with the broken tusk has moved on, and has decided that he can come out and carry on suntanning again. So there you can see him, sort of those reeds on the trough's wall. He looks like a very smooth rock, like a World War II helmet, with a head on the right hand side. That is a freshwater turtle or terrapin. We've noted him. Oh, look at this elephant coming in now from the right, having a drink in the trough. Cleanest water will be there, and of course the most favored by the elephant. Goodness me, we've raced through the show today. It's been great. I think we've got like 2 minutes or so left of the show, a minute and a half or so, and then it'll be over for today. I just love these shows, to be honest with you. It's so super cool. But, I'd like to say, firstly, thank you to all of you viewers out there for keeping your eyes on the screen. It really, really does make a difference. Thanks for your donations. Thank you to all the partners that make it possible to have these cameras that we do. Thank you to the business. Thank you to all the staff that make this possible and bring the show to you. So just thank you, and just an outpouring of gratitude to everybody, just to say thank you very, very much. It's spending time with these pans and their associated community is just an absolute privilege and something that I really enjoy doing. And so, at least from my side, I'd like to wish you a pleasant rest of the weekend, and for this, our fellow South Africans, happy Heritage Day. Enjoy the rugby. I'm holding thumbs that we're going to be doing well today. And everyone else, stay safe wherever you are. We'll catch you definitely tomorrow, every single day. So all the best out there, and from me, at least anyway, ciao. The last couple of seconds, I'll leave you to the sounds.